แต่เมื่อขณะนี้เปลี่ยนบทบาทมาเป็นนักพูดระดับโลกนะคะเขาก็เดินทางทั่วโลกค่ะและพยายามที่จะเน้นการทำงานในตะวันออกกลางและแอฟริกาไปพูดที่ไหนก็มีค่าตัวแพงมากทีเดียวนะคะแต่ละครั้งมีรายงานว่าไม่น่าจะต่ำกว่า15 ล้านบาทและครั้งนี้ไทย PBS ก็มีโอกาสสัมภาษณ์พิเศษโทนี่แบร์ด้วยค่ะ Hello I'm Nattha from Thai PBS โดยห้องสัมภาษณ์ด้วยบรรยากาศแบบถึงแม้จะรู้ว่ามีเวลาจำกัดนะคะแต่ว่าก็เต็มไปด้วยบรรยากาศสบายๆแต่ว่าก็ต้องเร่งทำเวลากันนะคะเพื่อที่จะสัมภาษณ์กันให้ได้ครบในทุกๆเรื่องที่น่าจะคุยกับอดีตผู้นำของนายกรัฐมนตรีอดีตผู้นำของอังกฤษที่มาในครั้งนี้ค่ะโดยเฉพาะเรื่องสำคัญนะคะที่ต้องสอบถามก็คือศักยภาพของประเทศไทยปัญหาที่กำลังเกิดขึ้นที่บ้านเขานะคะเรื่องของวิกฤตยูโรโซนหรือว่าเรื่องของการเมืองและการก่อการร้ายคำขู่ที่เกิดขึ้นในประเทศไทยในช่วงนี้ค่ะ
Your Excellency, you left number 10 Downing Street for 5 years now since 2007. Is it life after number 10?
Yeah, it's fascinating actually. I mean, I'm very, very busy. I'm probably working as hard as I've ever worked. But I do a range of different things. Obviously, I'm engaged in the Middle East peace process. I have a foundation that's about religious faiths coming together, religious interfaith. I've got a charity in Africa, a little sports charity. I do work on climate change. I do business. I do lots.
In fact, much busier.
Well, it's different. It's just different. When you're Prime Minister, it's very stressful. You're constantly with things coming at you every day. It's less stressful, probably more enjoyable, but I work as hard as I've ever worked.
I understand that you are one of the highest paid speaker in the world, so you must be much richer now than when you were Prime Minister.
Well, certainly than when I was Prime Minister, but as I always say to people, I actually spend most of my time on unpaid work, in fact. So, but I'm better off than when I was Prime Minister.
And you spend a lot of time in the Middle East, in Africa, and you haven't been much to Asia. Why now?
I've been a lot to China, and I haven't been to Thailand before, but I'm very, I think Thailand's a fascinating place with enormous opportunities. I'd love my foundation to do work here because, obviously Thai culture is interesting. You've got Christians and Muslims, but it's predominantly Buddhist, of course. That's got a lot of interest for me too. So I'm here now, and this is my first visit since leaving office, but I intend to come back.
What's the potential you see in Thailand?
I think Thailand's got a fantastic opportunity at the moment. Look, you've got all these issues to do with your politics, and you're going to have to work those out. But the opportunity for Thailand is that you're part of the ASEAN bloc. What's happening within that bloc is interesting. Countries are growing strongly. You've got Indonesia changing a lot now, Vietnam, very different, Philippines. You've got Myanmar potentially opening up. You've got a situation in which if Thailand's clever about it, you could be the gateway for investment into that whole region.
In what way we can be clever about it?
I think really Thailand is both in terms of culture, its people, in terms of a place to do business. It's actually an easy place to come. Now, very obviously, what people have been reading about Thailand, I mean, apart from the terrible tragedy of the flooding and so on, which you've come through, and you have come through it, but it's obviously been about your politics, and, that issue is obviously going to be resolved. But my point to outside investors is, actually, there is no real difference in the politics of Thailand about people coming here. People are, whatever political party is in power, foreign investment is welcome in Thailand.
So in your eye, is it not a big hurdle for Thailand in terms of political differences, political division in the country, or national reconciliation that we are aiming to achieve?
I think it's important that you do achieve it, because otherwise people can get the wrong impression from the outside. But I actually think those people who know about Thailand, people who have been here and investing for some years, they've carried on throughout all your political crises. They've carried on doing well.
Yes. With the recent threat of terrorist attack in Thailand just happened last week, obviously Thailand cannot avoid threat of violence. How can we survive in this global economy and global terrorism at the same time?
Well, everyone faces this problem. And, I think people have got to be very careful about this because, all countries around the world have this potential for this terrorism based on a perversion of religion, based on a perversion of the proper faith of Islam. And we've just got to be very vigilant and determined about it. But, my view is people should come to Thailand and, you're no more risk in Thailand than you are, in most of the places in the West.
With the terrorism around the world and the level of violence is not less widespread than when you decided to join US troops to invade Iraq, do you regret that decision?
I still think, the world is safer without Saddam Hussein in power, and I think the problems that we got into in Iraq and the problems we have in Afghanistan are the same problems we have all over the region now. It's the same problems you have in Pakistan, in Somalia, in Nigeria, where there's been now a lot of violence. And that is, I'm afraid, there are terrorist organizations that want to, by terrorism, destabilize countries. And I think our response has got to be to stand up against them and to fight back, and not to end up in a situation where we say, okay, well, because these terrorists are prepared to take this activity, we've got to concede to them.
What should be the role of the world leader in making a decision between staying in or moving out of the conflicts or deciding to go into war?
You see, I think the problem is we have no option but to engage with this issue. I mean, people forget this now. 9/11 happened from terrorism based in Afghanistan coming to the US. And everything that followed after that came from that essential terrorist act. The terrorists who continue today to try and do damage and cause deaths around the world, they're not going to leave us alone if we leave them alone. This is the fallacy, in my view, of some of the thinking, is this belief that we are provoking this terrorism. They don't need us to provoke. Our existence provokes them, right? Because their view of their religion is basically that anybody, including their own people, who are different from them, should be targets of attack. So the majority of people who die in terrorist attacks from this Islamist extremism are fellow Muslims. So, my view is that if we think by shutting ourselves off from the world, these people will stop, we're making a big mistake. They're just going to carry on. And at some point, we're going to have to confront it and deal with it.